In 2003, the internet was introduced to a new website, and it would confuse those who explored it for over the next 2 decades. It's called Eht-Namuh, and it's a website that's either the ramblings of a crazy man or a philosophy that unlocks the key to the universe if only you understand what it's trying to say. The creator of this website is David Dennison, a man whose life is just as cryptic as the website he built. In the 1970s, Denison was one of the most popular surrealist painters in the United Kingdom, but his life seemingly fell into obscurity shortly after he ended his career as a painter, with the only evidence of him, apart from his website, coming in the form of a video uploaded to YouTube on February 12, 2020, titled "A Quick Tour of Mr. D's Starship." Apart from that though, very little is known about him, with only a limited number of instances where users had heard anything from him, with only 4 posts to the website's forums, none of which gave any information about what he was up to. Funnily enough though, we would somehow end up getting information on Denison through a Spanish article written on him, and it would be written that David spends his days immersed in endless calculations, progressions, sums, and numerical deductions based on strange words and texts taken from sources such as the Bible and ancient philosophers, with an incipient obsession with numbers. Those obsessions would then be what drove him to create 973-Eht-Namuh-973. In my opinion, this is one of the most fascinating websites on the internet, and it's one that I got lost in for hours on end, trying to figure out what it meant and why Denison had spent such a long time creating it. So let's take a deep dive into what 973-Eht-Namuh actually is. At first glance on the website, you're given a triangle with the words "Amazing Abracadabra" written on it, seemingly a dead end if you found it randomly. But click on the words "amazing" and you'll be taken into the actual website itself. But not yet. The same must be done with the symbols you now see, where they take you into a page that seems like pure incoherent rambling from a madman. But that's not quite true. The first page of Eht-Namuh is a formula to decode the entire website, presented mostly in the form of alphanumerical conversions, the system where A equals 1, B equals 2, and so on until Z equals 26. The website then gives you options to begin discovering its secrets, with 4 hyperlinks just on the first page, each of which takes you to a completely new page. Each new page gives you at least 3 new options of hyperlinks to click on, and going through all of these is virtually impossible, as a user on Reddit has estimates going as high as 100,000 individual handwritten pages on Eht-Namuh. Each page users went to gave more questions than answers, and the further down the rabbit hole they went, the more confused they ended up. But it was slowly, over time, that people began to understand that there was a method to this madness. On August 3rd, 2018, a user by the name of White Rabbit created a post on the Eht-Namuh forums, which he titled, "I finally solved it." It reads, "Hello everyone, I will be frank. I spent the last 5 years studying this website and spent a lot of hours to guide myself through this maze. I can tell you the results, but it is dangerous and there is a side effect that has affected me in a strange way." David Dennison, the creator of this site, was more than just a mathematician, linguistics, artist, and occultist, but someone that is very, very versed in alchemy. This site was a puzzle, a maze, with a series of dead ends and one path to navigate through it. Yet the ironic part of it is one of those puzzles where you start at the beginning only to end up at the beginning. The only exception is that you have the key to the puzzle, which was right in front of you the whole time, and it makes perfect sense. I won't post the results here only because it works too well. I'm happy to answer any questions in pertains to this site, but if you want to know the answer, I will not be accountable for any side effects that come after. Epiphany seeks the devoted. Users who found this forum post would only end up more motivated to seek the true message of this site, but in all honesty, the forums would not be of much help, as they would be shown messages more cryptic and outlandish than the previous scene. Messages detailing how users were time travelers and the Antichrist, or even how they had crossed the Greek myth of the river Styx, would end up giving users a glimpse into the madness that could be seen on the forums. Weirdly enough though, there would be a post that would agree with the White Rabbit and his theory. On February 13th, 2019, a user by the name of Sherlock would create a post titled, quote, "I finally understand it. The answer is not what I expected," end quote. He would detail essentially the same thing that the White Rabbit said. The answer isn't written directly on the website itself, but rather written through letters, numbers, and representations to gain a higher consciousness, and you will know soon. It happens when you least expect it. Everything the White Rabbit had said was true. The answer was with me all along. And with that, he would become another person who, apparently despite knowing the truth, would not write the answer to the website, leaving users to have to figure this puzzle out on their own. Having read these forum posts and seen the website, I became slightly obsessed with the website and its meaning for a few days, scrolling endlessly through the pages and trying to understand what it all meant, why he had done this, and what the answer White Rabbit and Sherlock had found was. And I believe that, although I understand some parts of the website, I am far from understanding what it all means. But here is my understanding and explanation of this enigma. 973 Eht-Namuh centers almost fully around Egyptian gods, numbers, and calculations all tying into each other, and somehow all connecting to the number 9. The website seems to revolve around one page called the evocation, which is defined as the action of invoking a spirit or deity, a concept backed by members on the website. On August 12, 2019, a user by the name of through account 12345 wrote about his experience on the website, explaining that this site just feels like pure power. I haven't let myself read more than a couple of paragraphs of the evocation because if I'm being honest, this seems like a quick way to be possessed by a demon. At a quick glance, the evocation seems like pure, incoherent rambling with mirrored sentences, repetition of random numbers and letters, and incomprehensible writing, but deep within it, a structure begins taking place. One of the first themes is the structure of the writing, presenting itself in the form of a pyramid, but more specifically, an Egyptian pyramid, which makes sense when you see the incessant repetition of Egyptian gods and goddesses throughout the evocation. I personally don't understand much of why Denison references Egyptian gods and goddesses, but I have some understanding. The main figures you'll read about are Ra, the sun god, Osiris, the god of the underworld, Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice, Isis, the goddess of magic and wisdom, Anubis, the god of funerals, and Horus, Isis's son and the god of protection. Some of these deities make more sense than others, such as Isis, who is supposed to provide wisdom to the reader to find the answer, and Anubis, Osiris, and Ma'at, who all represent the afterlife in some way. One of the main messages of the website is its insistence on the afterlife and being able to make it to heaven. Before I explain this though, there are a few things that must be explained. Denison, many times throughout the website, mentions a character called Zed Elias Zed, and unfortunately, there's no findable or reasonable explanation on what this means, but here is my theory on what Zed Elias Zed is. Zed is a representation of the letter Z, which, due to Denison's being British, would be pronounced as Zed. As for Elias, it is believed to be a reference to Alice in Wonderland and the rabbit hole she falls into, which would be a reference to the reader itself in this scenario, the person who fell into the rabbit hole. You'll further find that a big message on this website is the repetition of forwards and backwards, as seen by sentences written the same forwards and backwards. This would make it so that the user, the person who went from the end to the beginning and to the end in order to solve this puzzle, would be Zed Elias Zed, someone who went from Z to A to Z looking for the answer, and in the process fell into the rabbit hole of another world, in this case being Eht-Namuh, somewhat like Alice fell into the rabbit hole of another world. With that, let's go back to the evocation. A trial guided by bold revelations, explaining the judgment and truth. What is your verdict? Do you find the reader guilty or not guilty? With one voice, the truth of it all spoke, and the words of those that said read, guilty. The evocation is what I believe to be the central point of this website, and within its ridiculous length, containing over 18,000 words and 64,000 characters, you'll find references to Sanskrit writing, funnily enough, the White Rabbit, and Denison's own paintings from the 1970s, which appear throughout his website a lot. However, the evocation is still not one of the longest pages, with the page called The Human Race being the longest one I've found so far, totaling over 42,000 words and over 140,000 individual characters. In order to provide some understanding of how big this website is, there is a page with 13 separate indexes, 3 of which span over 10,000 words, again, only of indexes. Each of these indexes, each of these thousands of pages, each of the millions of words written by Denison, all point back to one thing, or rather, one single number: 9. In the late 1800s, Nikola Tesla revealed something that he'd been obsessing over his whole life, that being the number 9, saying that if only you knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you'd have a key to the universe, something that Denison would go on to somewhat prove. This proof would center around a particular equation that he would repeatedly use to help show his message. If we were to go back to the concept of alphanumerical conversions, and we spelled out the alphabet and assigned each letter their respective numbers and add up all the numbers, we get 351, and if you add up 3, 5, and 1, you get 9. Similarly, with 1 through 10, if you add up 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9, you get 45, and 4 plus 5 is 9. Although a decently simple concept, a large part of Eht-Namuh revolves around this, as it's seen everywhere around the website. Connections are made to concepts we've seen before, such as Horus and Osiris, but a lot of new concepts, such as connecting to speeches made by Abraham Lincoln, the death of George Floyd, the planets Venus and Jupiter, and many more random concepts that I truly don't understand their connection to an overall message. Apart from this website and how disturbing it may seem at times, with its weird rambling and haunting paintings, the most eerie part of it comes in the form of the forum. I've shown some of the posts on the forum, but some of them are truly disturbing. Users would often note how the people on the forum are pure lunatics. It's the website that's freaky, but the forum is equally as weird. Some of the things I've seen on the forum are truly unexplainable. Posts that make even less sense than the website, speaking of, well beyond the veil of ice, a flame melts a dice, which makes no sense and in itself is completely unrelated to Eht-Namuh. Even apart from cryptic and seemingly random posts, the people on the forum seem to speak in an extremely weird way, and they'll randomly copy and paste excerpts from the evocation and from the website for seemingly no reason. In my opinion, this is more evidence that the forums are not to be trusted, so whenever you see a post on this website, please take the information with a grain of salt. All in all, from what I've seen, this website is truly something to witness and I would recommend exploring it. But as the White Rabbit said, I am not going to be responsible for any side effects you might find.